Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Hari Shri Radhe. Jaya Krishna Balaram Jai Giri Govardhan. Krishna Balaram Jai Giri Govardhan. Krishna Balaram Jai Giri Govardhan. Jaya Gaurani Tai Jaya Gaurani Tai Jaya Gaurani Tai Jaya Gaurani Tai Gaurani Tai Jaya Gaurani Tai Jaya Gaurani Tai Jaya Jai Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jai Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jai Prabhupada Jai Jai Gurudev 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 Jai Jai Gurudev Jai Gurudev Gurudev Jai Jai Gurudev. Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parvata Shiva Astutar His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Shiva Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaisnavi Devi Dasi Namacharya Shiva Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Ki Jai Ganga Devi Ki Jai Yamuna Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Tulsi Devi Maharani Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Sri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So Hare Krishna everybody. So today we are reading from Canto 2, Chapter 10, which is entitled Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions, and we're reading from text 31. Tvakcharma mamsa rudira medoma jasti datavaha bhumi aptejo maya sapta prano vyo Mambu Vayubi Tvakcharma Mamsarudira Medo Majasti Datavaha Bhumi Aptejo Maya Sapta Prano Vyo Mambu Vayubi. So word for word, tvak, the thin layer on the skin. Charma, skin. Mamsa, flesh. Rudira, blood. Medaha, fat. Maja, marrow. Asti, bone. Tatavaha, elements. Bhumi, earth. Up, water. Tejaha, fire. Mayaha, predominating. Sapta, 7. Pranaha, breathing air. Vyoma, sky. Ambu, water. Vayubi, by the air. Translation by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The 7 elements of the body, namely the thin layer on the skin itself, the flesh, blood, fat, marrow, and bone, are all made of earth, water, and fire, whereas the life breath is produced by the sky, water, and air. Purport. The construction of the whole material world is predominantly made by three elements, namely earth, water, and fire. But the living force is produced by sky, air, and water. So water is the common element in both the gross and subtle forms of all material creation. And it should be noted herewith that due to necessity, water, being most prominent in the material creation, is the principal element of all the five. This material body is thus an embodiment of the five elements, and the gross manifestation is perceived because of three, namely earth, water, and fire. Sensations of touch are perceived due to the thin layer on the skin, and bone is as good as hard stone. The breathing air of life is produced of sky, air, and water, and therefore open air, regular bath, and ample space in which to live are favorable for healthy vitality. Fresh produce from the earth, like grains and vegetables, as well as fresh water and heat, is for the upkeep of the gross body. Jai Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Devi Krishna Goswami Namini Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gopal. So thank you all for coming. I seek the blessings of all the devotees that I can speak something that will be beneficial to myself and to all of us, and it's only for self-purification that I'm speaking, so that whatever I have researched, whatever I've heard and read, it can also penetrate my own heart, because it said that when we share this knowledge, then we actually can apply it more. You get more out of teaching or sharing it, because it penetrates your heart. So Prabhupada in this purport mentions that the gross forms in the material world are all made from earth, water, and fire, and the elements of the subtle forms, like we understand that we are spirit soul, and we are covered by this gross body, and then we have a subtle body which is made up of, who can say what the subtle body is made up of? Any of the young boys? Our subtle body is made up of three parts. Yes, thank you, Steph, and thank you, Harinam Prabhu. So it's the subtle body is made up of mind, intelligence, and false ego. And then we have the gross body, that's our gross body. And then we are the soul that's identifying with this gross body and with our own mind and intelligence, and we think this is who we are. And Prabhupada mentions that there's 7 elements of the body. That's the thin layer on the skin itself, the flesh, blood, fat, marrow, and bone. So I'm going to speak on this purport, and it's beyond my kind of capacity and realization, but I'll just share the information that I have got, and so that we can understand also what our goal is, and we can try to aim for that. So Prabhupada mentions in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, 25, 24, that it says there in the purport, the 2 breasts represent attachment and envy. So in the material body, we see that people are attracted to the external form, the skin. Oh, you have beautiful skin, you have beautiful hair, you're so beautiful. And the lady similarly thinks, oh, he's so handsome, he's got strong muscles and things like that. So, some ladies in the old days when I was growing up in school, they would say, oh, he's such a hunk. So there's that attraction, but that attraction is based on the external. But nowadays people are into all mindfulness and things, so they understanding that there's something else that you look for beyond the material body, but still that is also material because it's looking at the subtle elements like, the person's intelligent and things like that, or their skills. But we see from the pages of the Bhagavatam, from the scriptures, that there's something beyond the gross and subtle body. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam 4:25-24, it says that, it's quoting from Bhagavad Gita 3:34, which says, Indriya sendriyarthi ragad veso vyavastito tayor vasham agachit tauhi asya paripantino, which says that attraction and repulsion for sense objects are felt by embodied beings, but one should not fall under the control of senses and sense objects because they are stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. So it says these, in that purport, the Srimad Bhagavatam, it says, so these material elements that Prabhupada mentions here, the skin and blood and marrow and things like that, and we are attracted to the skin, it says these representatives of attachment and envy are very much unfavorable for advancement in spiritual life. One should not be attracted by the breasts of young women. The great Saint Sankaracharya has described the breasts of women, especially young women, as nothing but a combination of muscles and blood. So one should not be attracted by the illusory energy of raised breasts with nipples. They are agents of Maya, meant to victimize the opposite sex. Because the breasts are equally attractive, they are described as Samabrato. The sex impulse remains in an old man's heart also, even up to the point of death. So this reminds of a story where there's a king and he had a minister, I think his name was Birbal, and the king asked his minister that when does the sex impulse stop? And the minister said that it doesn't even stop till old age. And the king was like surprised. He said, "Oh, I don't, doesn't make sense. I don't, he couldn't understand and perceive that that's possible." So then one day there was an old man in the kingdom who was dying, and then the minister, who was very intelligent, he asked the king, "You come and we'll go see this old man who's at his deathbed and bring your beautiful young daughter, the princess." So when a great person comes, we all in great honor and we want to make all nice arrangements for that person. And some great stately person comes, but when they went to see that old man, immediately his eyes went to the beautiful young princess. So it shows that this lusty desire, this mentality is in the body of the person till the time of death. And that's why Prahlad Maharaj mentions that from a young age one should learn the spiritual knowledge and cultivate it from a young age, so that by practice we can apply it when some of you may enter married life, or some of us who are already in married life, then we can apply this principle, that there's something higher than this, as Maharaj was mentioning, Devamrita Swami, this itch, there's this to enjoy with the sexual pleasures that they enjoy in the heavenly world. So this also reminds of the devotees in the 80s. They used to do a play called Liquid Beauty. So in this play, it's a very graphic description where there was once a prince and he was riding in the forest, and he met this beautiful maiden, and she was so beautiful and attractive. Then he says, "I would like to marry you," but she was very detached and renounced, and she could understand that this body she was given due to her past karma, and she had the good fortune to have a beautiful body, but she didn't think much of it. She was dedicated to service to the Lord, and she was detached from the materialistic life. But he was really determined to marry her. So she said, I'm not this body, I'm not this beauty. And he says, she said, okay, if you want, I can marry you. You come back in 10 days or something like that, in a few days, and you come back, and if you still wish to marry me, I'll marry you. So she went to a cottage, and she started taking purgatives to make her throw up and pass stool and urine. And she wasn't eating much, and she became very skinny and grey. Her skin became very grey and dull, and her hair became very brittle and started falling off. And then after some time, that prince came riding, and he knocked on the door, and then he said, where is that beautiful maiden I wish to marry? And she says, I am that beautiful maiden. And he says, you are not that maiden. And she said, I am. Let me show you my beauty. So she took him to a pot where she collected all that, the byproducts of the stool and the vomit and the urine, and and the mucus that came out, and she showed him that pot, and it was stinking, and she said, this is my beauty. So we are enamored with the external form of a person, and we think that is, that is attractive, but we have this human body, so someone may be attractive, and we appreciate it, because even Krishna describes in Bhagavad Gita that anything that is beautiful or inspiring, then we appreciate that this is part of Krishna, it's connected to Krishna, but we don't try to enjoy it and think that this is for my own sense gratification. So our body, as Prabhupada mentioned in that Canto 4 verse, it says it's made up of blood, mucus, and pus. So similarly also for ladies, it's not that just, these graphic examples, because that's the natural tendency that a man is attracted to the form of a woman. But similarly, women are also attracted to the form of a man, that, and also that he can provide and things like that. But in this human form of life, we may be in a male body or female body, but we are all Prakriti, which means that we have the nature of being enjoyed by Krishna, by God. And we are all to be enjoyed by the Supreme Enjoyer. So, in the Nectar of Devotion, chapter 50, it's quoting from Srimad Bhagavatam 10:60-44, where in Rukmini Devi, she is the wife of Krishna, a queen in Dwarka, and she's talking to Krishna, and she says that a woman who is attracted to a man who has a mustache and, a material form of a man, is like, being attracted to a dead body, because that body is a material body. And we have that attraction because we don't have something higher, an attraction to Krishna. So it's not that we see, oh, this person is beautiful, and they are fallen or anything, or even this person's ugly, or whatever. Whatever the external form is, it doesn't matter. But we look at working together. So a man and a woman, they come together and they get married for a higher purpose. Just like Devamrita Swami last night, he went to a yoga preaching center, and he was talking about how men and women, they have a desire to find someone, because someone in the audience asked a question about soulmate. So that element may be there, but in the human form of life, we understand that there's a higher purpose. So when a man and a woman come together in married life, they put God, Krishna, in the center of their life, and they assist each other in service to the Lord. So they're utilizing that attraction in the service of the Lord, and they also have children so that they can bring them up in Krishna consciousness. So also In Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 8, the prayers of Queen Kunti, she talks about this skin disease that we see our family members, our husband, wife, our parents, our uncles and children, and we identify with them. So that is called a skin disease. We think that they are my family, me, mine, and mine and I. So we're always thinking, how can I protect my family? How can I do the best for my family? But even a great elevated devotee like Kunti Devi, she's a saint in our Vaishnava line. And she had great sons who were the 5 Pandavas, who were always associating with Krishna, always thinking about Krishna. And we would question that, why is she asking Krishna in this prayer, Canto 1, Chapter 8, text 42, she says, O Lord of Madhu, she's addressing Krishna, as the Ganges forever flows to the sea without hindrance, let my attraction be constantly drawn unto you without being diverted to anyone else. So even though in the previous verse she's saying, O Lord of the universe, soul of the universe, O personality of the form of the universe, please therefore sever my tie of affection for my kinsmen, the Pandavas and the Vrishnis. So the Pandavas and Vrishnis, they're not ordinary persons, they're also devotees of the Lord. So this is also teaching us that we are in the association of great elevated devotees. Anyone connected to Krishna is on the path back home, back to Godhead. So they're not ordinary persons. Also the Pandavas and Vrishnis, they were great elevated devotees. But even she's showing by her personal example that we shouldn't be so attached to the family. We should be attached to the devotees of the Lord because they are connected with Krishna. So the same thing Devamrita Swami was mentioning, that anything that's in his classes that he's been giving while he was here, that anything that's not connected to Krishna brings us down, and anything that is connected with Krishna, even so-called family life, so-called jobs, if they are connected to Krishna, we are doing it all ultimately for the pleasure of Krishna. We're looking after our family for Krishna. We are working so we can earn some money and we can give to the Lord, or we can invite devotees to our home and we can buy vegetables and fruits and feed the devotees. Then that is Krishna consciousness, that is devotional service. So in this purport 1.8.41, it mentions that when we identify with our material family, it says all these partialities they troubled Queen Kunti, and she desired to cut off the affectionate tie. So Prabhupada mentions there, a pure devotee cuts off the limited ties of affection for his family and widens his activities of devotional service for all forgotten souls. So one person, one guest at the yoga retreat yesterday was asking Devamrita Swami that, do you have to aim for something higher, or do you get happiness by practicing this bhakti path? And Devamrita Swami said that there is no question of happiness when you're practicing this bhakti yoga, because the happiness is already there. That is something like a side benefit that we get. But he says that, Maharaj was saying, just like the 6 Goswamis have that mood that they are paradukha dukhi, they are unhappy when they see others unhappy. So when their happiness is not the primary concern, they want others to be happy. And they understand that we can only be happy when we are engaged in devotional service, when we are connected to God, when we are connected to Krishna. That's the only way we can be happy. There's no other material way we can be happy. Even if we have so much money, we have great intelligence, we have a great job, we have a beautiful body. All this will be finished at the end of life. What we take with us is only our devotional service and our devotional practice. Just like yesterday, Mukunda Maharaj's 80th birthday celebrations, there was this devotee called Sonaka Rishi Prabhu, who was a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. He was mentioning how Mukunda Maharaj engaged him in various services, and he was bringing up in those days, there was someone who wanted that devotee, Sonaka Rishi Prabhu, to take his service away, because they didn't want all these things where they wanted to develop this communications department within ISKCON where they address women's issues and child protection like that. And then he was saying that Mukunda Maharaj says, even if all these cases we bring up and we get sued for it and we lose all our money, they take everything from us. He said, but what we remain with is our devotional practice and our integrity. So that is what we take with us. So everything else may be there, we may be practicing, we may have some high position, we may be practicing for a certain number of years. But if we don't have that integrity and we don't have this devotional practice, then we see, like we sometimes, sad to say, sometimes we see also devotees who have some certain position or they've been practicing for some time, but they may lack some integrity, and who am I to speak? But we also see devotees who we aspire for, and we also see devotees who've been practicing, but we see that how they are behaving, what they are speaking, it's not really up to what Prabhupada's standard is, and that's why we have this threefold check of Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. And also there's a word of caution here. Of course, when we're reading, we're mainly reading for ourselves, that what we should do, what we shouldn't do. And we respect anyone who's chanted Hare Krishna or who's chanting, but we also keep a respectful distance from that person, because we understand that I'm having this critical mindset because I really don't feel comfortable with how they are behaving or how they are treating others, even though they may be a senior devotee. Because a senior devotee is someone who is sincerely practicing, not so much what position they have, how many years they've been practicing. Of course, we respect the devotees who have given their life, who've been practicing for many years. And we see that this devotional practice is, the process works, but then it's also the application. And those who are in the Sangha of devotees, and they're like, I listen to Vaiseshika Prabhu, and he often says that we should be humble, and we should be open to, he says the phrase, I live to be corrected. As someone who's such a great devotee of his caliber, who's saying something like that, and he means it. You can sense someone's, even when we come across someone, we can sense their mood to some degree, and we can perceive of their depth of Krishna consciousness. That's why there's a saying, we shouldn't demand respect. The person commands respect. So we see devotees in our Sangha like His Holiness Ramai Swami, Devamitra Swami, Mukunda Maharaj, Ambika Mataji, so many devotees who command that respect because they are sincerely following, and we aspire to follow in their footsteps and develop a drop of the qualities that they have. So I'm just going to also read from the purport, the prayers of Queen Kunti. So she's asking Krishna that may my mind flow to the river Ganges flows. So similarly, it flows to the sea. So may my mind also be diverted not to anything else and not be hindered by anything else, but flow directly to the shelter of your lotus feet. So in that purport it says, perfection of pure devotional service is attained when all attention is diverted towards the transcendental loving service of the Lord. To cut off the tie of all other affections does not mean complete negation of the finer elements like affection for someone else. This is not possible. A living being, whoever he may be, must have this feeling of affection for others, because this is a symptom of life. The symptoms of life, such as desire, anger, hankerings, feelings of attraction, etc., cannot be annihilated. So we understand that desire cannot be stopped. Prabhupada says desire can't be stopped, but it can be dovetailed, it can be purified in the service of the Lord. So Prabhupada mentions the desire cannot be negated, but in devotional service of the desire is changed only by the service of the Lord in place of desire for sense gratification. The so-called affection for family, society, country, etc. consists of different phases of sense gratification. When this desire is changed for the satisfaction of the Lord, it is called devotional service. So it's not that, like we heard sometimes in the 80s, some devotees, they neglected their children for devotional service, and then we saw some of those children from that time, they became very inimical to devotional service because they were neglected by their parents because maybe somehow in their enthusiasm or immaturity they didn't understand that serving their children, looking after their children, is devotional service. So Prabhupada had given this one example where there was a disciple, and I think she wanted to give up her child for adoption because she wanted to continue her deity worship and her service to the Lord. And Prabhupada said this famous phrase. He said, "Child worship is higher than deity worship." So there was one devotee in Auckland who sometimes quoted this verse, and they lived on the farm, but they didn't do any service to the Lord. So it doesn't mean we hear something and we take it in an isolated way. We need to see it according to time, place, and circumstances. So that devotee wanted to give up her child. So Prabhupada is showing the importance of you can bring up the child in Krishna's service, give them love and affection, and also don't neglect them in the name of service. And then the other devotee on the other side was using that phrase and not doing any devotional service. So in their immaturity, they were using that excuse that I won't do any service and I'm just looking after my child. So the child also, children, they don't learn by telling them, they learn through example. So if we tell them, there's an example of one lady, she went to a holy person and asked that holy person in the village that tell my son he's eating too much sugar and it's not good for his teeth. And that holy person says, come back in 1 month. And then she took her child to that holy person, and that holy person told him, stop eating sugar. And the little boy was so startled, he was stopped eating so many sweets, and the mother was also startled. And she said, why didn't you tell him at that time? Because you waited for a whole month. And then that holy person said, I had to stop eating myself because I was attached to eating sugar. So Devamrita Swami also mentioned yesterday, he was doing a kirtan at the end of the yoga retreat program, and he was saying that the musicality of the kirtan is not so much of importance. Of course, in sharing Krishna consciousness with others, that is a very favorable aspect of devotional service. But he said the main thing is the sincerity. And when one is when the speaker, Madhuvani's sister Lalita Priya, she was introducing Devamrita Swami, she was saying that when someone is practicing, then that potency and that those words really penetrate the heart. So when Maharaj was singing and when he was talking, you can sense that it penetrates the heart, and you're able to apply it. It's just like when someone is practicing, it's like a via medium. They become transparent. When you look through a glass, it's transparent and you can see clearly. But if the glass is dirty, when we are not following ourselves and we are just saying, you can't really see clearly through the glass. So to the degree that we are practicing and trying to apply it sincerely, to that degree we are able to penetrate others' hearts and give them this opportunity to understand what our ultimate happiness is when it's connected to God, when it's connected to Krishna. And that is for the benefit of everyone and for ourselves as well. Because Krishna is pleased when in Bhagavad Gita he says, no one is dearer to me than one who shares this knowledge with others. So Krishna is pleased with us, and then Krishna is also pleased when all the living entities we are part and parcel of him, that we go back to him, to the spiritual world. So I'll end there if there's any questions, comments, corrections. Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you so much for a nice class. In your class you quoted a verse that Kunti Devi says from the first canto, and in that verse Kunti Devi says, she's asking Krishna to Sukhiya to cut the attachment to her family. At the same time, her family are all great devotees of the Lord. So how do we understand that? Also after that verse, Krishna also tells her, yes, let it be like that, I'll do that. So how do we understand that prayer that she's asking to cut off the attachment, and yet the attachment should be there for the devotees of the Lord?
I'll just explain to what my small realization is and my understanding. I'm sure maybe Ramai Swami can speak more on that. But what I understand from that is that great devotees that are mentioned in Bhagavatam, they are actually self-realized, just like Arjuna. He's in Bhagavad Gita, he's appearing to be bewildered, but he's put under Yoga Maya to show us. He's speaking and questioning Krishna for our benefit. So similarly, Queen Kunti, she's saying this prayer to Krishna to teach us by her example that such a great personality. So in the purport, Prabhupada mentions that affection can't be separated from a living entity because we are a soul. But that affection is connected to Krishna. So to sever the tie is to sever the tie of material attachment, that this is my son. Just like we see these young boys here, Uddhava and Nandulal and Sham, like, you have this maternal affection for them, even though they're not you haven't given birth to them biologically. So she's teaching that affection, to sever the tie of that material affection, but not that spiritual affection. So seeing there, Prabhupada mentions that we broaden our vision, not just the family, but to every living entity. That's my small understanding on that.
Very good answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji.
Also, the other thing is that in regard to Kunti Devi, the main thread of that instance was that she, in the distress of her family, they were all devotees and she was a devotee, but she experienced more intense love for Krishna because of the disturbance that herself and her family had been going through. So because of that, because they were devotees of Krishna, they turned to Krishna more. So that's the actual essence Radha and Krishna. There are different interactions between Radha and Krishna, and some are more intense than others. And so Radharani and both Radha and Krishna are striving to intensify their ecstatic love and emotion for each other. So the essence of that verse is a very famous verse, and the essence of her statement is that she experienced more love for Krishna because of the distress. Therefore, she's asking for even more. So therefore, she wants more.
Thank you, Maharaj. So, Sadhana Mataji.
Hare Krishna, it's a really interesting class. There's a lot in it, and I could ask probably 5 more questions. But the question that I do want to ask is this mood of integrity and service, was it?
Yes.
Could you explain that more, please?
What I understood from there is that it reminds me of the example of Urmila Mataji once. She was saying there was some problem going on, and then she was relating something else in Hawaii that I think she gave the example that or somewhere in America there was this temple president, and he wasn't acting rightly, and then he was running this whole temple and preaching program and that, and then but something wasn't right. So at the cost of this whole big project, to sacrifice that project, but then you maintaining that integrity and purity of Prabhupada's teachings. So you kind of weighed up. But she says, even at the cost of this whole community falling apart, you do what is pleasing to Krishna. Of course, there's a managerial aspect to it, and so many other factors, so many people's lives will be affected by it. But she was talking about that integrity. When we read Prabhupada's books, we understand that how we should act. Just like we see, I see, when I'm here at the temple, I see how Mukunda Maharaj and Ramai Swami, they talking with everyone, even if you just like a nobody like me and or anyone else or any newcomer that comes, you can see that genuine, asking, oh, how are you, things like that, and that integrity that they are a servant of Srila Prabhupada, they are a servant of Krishna, and respecting every living entity, living that integrity of the teachings, that seeing every living entity, that verse in Bhagavad Gita, the sage who by spiritual vision sees the elephant, the cow, the dog, and the dog eater with equal vision. So that living in integrity is living by the scriptures, living by the example of the sadhus. That's how I see that integrity. So it's not sometimes for managerial things or for the purpose of some external things or how it looks externally, but you follow what the scriptures say, and you pray to Krishna for guidance. How can I resolve this situation that will benefit everyone? Because we can't do it on our own. Whatever we do, we need to pray to Krishna just like Mukunda Maharaj's 80th, in this devotee was the same devotee, Shonagrishi Prabhu, was asking Mukunda Maharaj, how can I decide? I think he was given some project and he had to choose from the best one, and then Mukunda Maharaj told him, okay, you meditate on it for half an hour, just sit and just think about it, and then you decide. So the vision became clear through the servant of Krishna, or Krishna directly, you're praying, then that clarity becomes clear how to act with integrity. So that's how I understood that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else has any questions, comments?
I can ask another question because it's coming up. So I hope you don't mind me asking this, but in the past we've had child abuse
this is beyond me to talk about, but what I understand is, I'm kind of a little bit passionate when it comes to things like this. It should be done, it's the right way, but we take guidance from the senior devotees because they've been practicing. So sometimes, the tendency is, like many devotees, even Vaisheshika Prabhu and my Guru Maharaj Bir Krishna Goswami, he mentions that we have this tendency to immediately go on social media and publicize things. There's a way, there's even this, just recently I saw on Mumulimba Matters, the administrator wrote that please keep your personal matters off this page and deal with it in private. So it doesn't mean something is so grave that immediately it has to be made public. Then, it's off my chest. Actually, we are just regurgitating something so that we feel good. That's like my Guru Maharaj gave the example of his mother. She would give in charity. And she says, oh, the poor person, I feel sorry for them. It's not about her, like he was just, in his humble way, he was giving the example. It's not that we're doing it really for that person. We're doing it so we feel good that I did the right thing. So that element also comes into it. And there's many things in the world that we need to, it's not that we have to air out our dirty laundry because it just causes disturbance for everyone else. There's things that are dealt with in core groups, just like in a managerial, in a company. There's different groups, and then there's small groups, and then there's the higher group, which has each individual from all the smaller groups who deal with it. So that integrity comes, and we as like the ordinary individuals in a kingdom, we don't understand what the king is doing or the president is doing at his level because he's seeing the bigger picture. So when we see things, then we see things according to our level, but we need to understand that there's something else, and these kind of things need to be dealt with very sensitively, because also someone can rectify themselves if they do something, but of course they can't be in the association of the devotees, but we just protect everyone and we try to do the best for everyone. Hope that answers to some degree. Thank you. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.